Thank you so much for joining us, MC, on the Dwellynn show today. I'm your host, Oladantes. It's an honor to definitely have you on our show today, MC.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, so obviously, I've known MC for quite some time now. Listen to your podcast. You're doing a great, job. I can obviously read your profile, but I'm sure you could do a way better job than I can, and tell the Dwell listeners a little bit more about yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately, actually.
Yeah, so I'm originally from South Africa, MC Laubscher. I live in Newtown, Pennsylvania now with my wife and two children. As I mentioned, originally from South Africa, I came to the US in 2001 with a sense of humor, adventure, a backpack, and a suitcase. I traveled a bit around, played representative sports, rugby, up until 2007. And while I was doing that, I just kind of studied and learned as much as I can about investing. Came across a purple book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that took me down the rabbit hole of trying to learn as much as I can. And I think one of the things that stands out in that book for me is how I realized that nobody really knows anything, right? Data is so important, and data has held a lot of us back. Regardless of where you're from, whether you're from Africa, Asia, Australia, North America, the US, data is a big thing that hold people back from their goals. So it's very important where you get your data from. That book really changed my mindset and opened my mind and made me realize that there's an entire different worldview, mindset, and data that actually very wealthy and successful people use to achieve the great heights and reach the success that they do, which is completely different from the average person. So most of us get our advice from family members, friends, coworkers, all that stuff. Nobody knows anything. Trust me, nobody knows a single thing. And it's kind of shocking how little people actually know. And the more that people will actually tell you about stuff, the less they know. Your spidey senses should go up. Anyway, so that took me into a completely different direction in my life, as I mentioned, try to study everything I can. And so for almost 2 decades now, I've just been trying to study the wealthiest families, individuals, looking at what banks and corporations do with their own money and their investing strategies. Fast forward to where I am today, I'm the creator and host of a podcast called Cashflow Ninja, where we share how to create income streams from real estate, commodities, oil, gas, gold, silver, and so forth. We cover paper assets. We cover crypto and blockchain assets. And then we also, real estate businesses, commodities, paper assets, and then crypto and blockchain. So a little bit of everything. And then also share different strategies, how they kind of fit together. And a lot of these asset classes, we talk about how you can integrate them as well. And then I'm the president and chief wealth and investment strategist at Producers Wealth. We're a wealth creation firm that operates virtually in all 50 states in the United States. And we also have partners in Canada.
Wow, that's a lot, actually. Yeah, because obviously, as you know, in Dwellynn, we focus on real estate, but I definitely want to tap into some of the other, assets that you mentioned. So you've been studying a lot of wealth families, and you've been studying a lot of how people get wealthy. Can you just give us a freebie of what is that one thing that makes someone successful and the next person isn't as successful? What is that one thing?
I'll share the wealth formula that a mentor shared with me. And he basically said, because everybody wants to know how to make money. That's where everyone starts at. How do I make money? How do I make an extra buck here and there? And it's quite the reverse, of course, what the wealthy is doing. So the wealth formula that they look at is your mental capital times your relationship capital. And that'll get you your financial capital. If you take care of the first two, the third part of that is automatic. It's going to happen. There's obviously a time factor attached to that. It doesn't happen right away, unfortunately. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. There's no such thing. It's not a magic bullet. It's not a Bitcoin that you buy and the next day you're a millionaire. It's just something that you have to do gradually and consistently. So let's break it down for a second. Mental capital, what is that? it's basically what you know, right? And who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, your life experiences. We all have a different worldview and a different life experience. That's what makes us unique, right? You and I both grew up in Africa, in different parts of the continent. We have a different experience from each other, and we have different experiences to what people have in the United States. Someone that grows up in Alaska has a different life experience than someone that grows up, let's pick Louisiana or Florida, right, in the South. So everyone's unique. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone has different attachments to certain things. And by attachment, I mean how they relate to certain things. Money being a big one, right? What happened in your family? What was the core beliefs that your parents had, and so forth. So all of that things ties it in. What are you reading? You know, my goal is to read 52 books this year. A book a week is my goal. So, and it's very doable, by the way. Even, you know, I'm on track, and I use Audible a lot, just to give you an example. What you read, who you study, what you study, the courses that you take, and so forth. Under mental capital, the wealthy folks know this one big secret: a high income skill. They know that there's a need for a high income skill set. That high income skill set is something that's really going to drive and increase your income to then later get to the investment part. Now, how do you determine what a high income skill set is? It's a skill set that solves a big problem. The bigger the problem, the more valuable it will be, the more higher of a level that income skill set needs to be, right? So that's under the mental capital. That's you. You can control all of that, by the way. That's not Wall Street. It's not the real estate market. It's not property manager. You can control the mental capital portion. The next part is the relationship part. You know, we humans, we're strange creatures. We are pack animals, and it's all about who you know, who's in your network, what relationships you have, who's part of your team, right? Who's your bookkeeper? Who's your accountant? Who's your tax strategist? Who's your estate guy? Who's your asset protection guy? Who's your insurance guy? All those folks, right? And then also what masterminds you belong to, what events do you go to, live events, what meetups do you go to? And right now, this is also something that you can control, because people would always say, hey, I just don't have access to people. That is absolute nonsense. Today, you can interact with people that no one would be able to interact with that level of a person like 20 to 30 years ago. Think about it. I mean, you can direct message Elon Musk if you want to on Twitter, right? So it's like the access is definitely there. You can have conversations on social media. You can have access to very successful people when you go to meetups. There's always successful people in real estate groups that love to teach and love to share, right? And then also when you start making money and you want to play a bigger game, yeah, there's a ticket price to it. Those are masterminds, and you actually want to get into that high ticket masterminds because, again, the wealthy see that as an investment. They invest in relationships. So between those two, I know I've gone on and on a little bit about it, but between those two, if you just think about it, right? How many billionaires have you seen lose everything? And then they make it back faster than they ever made it in the first place. And you're like, how the hell did that happen? That's almost impossible. Like, how did a guy lose everything, but all of a sudden like that, he's more successful than what he was before? It's because he had those two. You could take away the financial capital. If he has that mental capital and relationship capital, he'll just grind it out, man, and just manufacture some more financial capital. So that's why they really focus on those things. So it's kind of the intangible stuff versus the tangible, you know, where a lot of folks, I would say the average person is obsessed about stuff, but shoving their house full of stuff, shoving their self-storage spaces full of stuff, talking about real estate, where the very wealthy and successful folks are more focused on stuffing stuff, invisible stuff, into their mind, consuming it, and then also stuff with regards to relationship.
Wow, I've never heard that before. That is powerful. That is fascinating. Mental capital, relationship capital. The first time I heard a relationship, I actually was thinking of like family relationships, right? Like relationships you have with your wife or your family members, but you also talk about business relationships. That's really intriguing.
Yep. And it starts with your family, right? I mean, I always talk about everything starts with yourself, and then it goes into your partner, your wife, your spouse, and then also your children, and then in your family, and it just kind of spreads. It's a ripple effect. You're going to have a healthy home, an environment for your children, and if you have healthy families like that, you're going to have healthy communities and neighborhoods. And when you have healthy spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally communities and towns, now all of a sudden it just ripples through that. I mean, of course, that's one of the reasons why we live in the world that we live in, is that it's absolutely not perfect and there's a lot of issues. But I think, like, once we realize how important that is, that deep down, we like to think we're these sentient beings on a pedestal. We are creatures, we're species, and we're pack animals. That's why if you really want someone to go crazy, you isolate them from other people, right? So, and the other thing though too, we live in a solopreneur world, which is great. You have to start somewhere, the other thing is too, you get to a point where you can be very successful as a solopreneur. You can make 7-figure income, and there's a lot of folks making even more than that as solopreneurs. But once you get to a certain level, or depending on what you want to build and how you want to build it, you're going to need people to build that with you. So you're going to need relationships. So that's what I've found. But that was a game changer for me, by the way. And I still do that. For your listeners, if they set goals and targets, and I know we're coming up here, what are we in now? Like March, beginning of March, we're coming up to the end of the first quarter. To sit down, take a piece of sheet, a blank piece of paper, and draw a line in the middle, and on the left-hand side, write down mental capital, and on the right-hand side, write down a relationship capital, and take an inventory of where you are. And then on the flip side of the paper, do the same thing, and then take an inventory of things that you need to do. What do I need to study? Who do I need to study? What books do I need to read? All that stuff with mental capital and relationship capital. Who do I need to meet? What type of people do I need to meet? What core beliefs do they have? Why do I need to meet them? And then also and network with them. And then also, how can I add value to those folks? What do I have to offer? I want to meet all these folks. What do I have to offer? It's like, yeah, great. I want to go for tea with Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, and Elon Musk. Great goal. What do you have to offer them? What are you going to bring to the table? What angle or something or value can you provide to get a seat at that table, right? Because you're just not going to get it. You're going to have to earn it, unfortunately.
Wow, that is such a powerful, fiery way to start this interview. Thank you so much for sharing that. I might definitely have to do that exercise myself as well. So I kind of want to rewind back a little bit historically. So you moved from South Africa to the US, and then you decided you picked up the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then how did you make that decision to choose real estate as an asset class, just to kind of start your journey? Or did you?
Yes. So I actually bought my first property maybe within the first 2 months after I finished that book. So I usually like to take action, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes I've learned, I'm a little bit older now, it's 20 years later almost, that I'm a little bit more weary, and I have a different process of decision making, because I know that sometimes when I'm into something, I'll take immediate action, whether it's good, bad, or, otherwise. But yeah, going back to that, I like real estate as an asset class for me. Number one, I don't try to recreate the wheel. I just look at what successful people do. I think that's one of the things that has contributed to some success that I've had, is from my sports days when I played rugby, I just look at what the best players did and try to copy them, right? I almost want to write a book. If you want to be successful, just copy and paste. So I would study what they do, learn what they eat, their strength and conditioning programs, and then break down tape, right? And then also how they recover and so forth. The same thing when it comes to when I studied billionaires and wealthy families. They all made their money in businesses, and they had that high income skill set within the family or the individual. Build a business, but where does the money go? Real estate. You'll be surprised to know too, and this is one thing, I've interviewed quite a number of crypto millionaires. Well, that's what they tell me. I know that some of them to be a little bit bigger than millionaires, but what do they do with their money? A lot of them are in real estate. because it's a hard asset, right? And they're in the crypto space, which talk about a volatile space and all kind of up in the cloud, air, you know, numbers, all that kind of stuff, computer. So it makes them at ease to know that they take their money and then invest it in hard assets such as real estate. So yeah, from real estate perspective, copying and pasting what billionaires and millionaires and wealthy families do. They've income generating businesses, cash flow from that, and then they park their money, their real true wealth in real estate. The other thing about real estate that attracts me is that it moves slowly. So that fits my personality type and profile and my investor DNA. I like the fact to see something coming, trends, and anticipate it, prepare, change my strategy to adapt to it, and then and then plug along with it, like implement the new changes, right? Real estate is just that. You can see things coming and going in waves, right? Like, I'll give you an example. A lot of people are seeing, for example, in real estate, that 76 million baby boomers are going into their golden years in retirement. They're going to need assisted living facilities, right? So there you go. Assisted living facilities is a big trend. That's one of the things. So that's kind of what I like. It moves slowly enough, and it's going to be there, you know, years from now. People are going to need a place to stay. Whether we drive electrical cars, whether we drive around in hovercrafts, whether we trade in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, or whether we're back to gold and silver, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to need a place to live.
So cash flow is king, right? I'm sure you know that phrase. And
Absolutely.
obviously you run, you know, Cashflow Ninja, right? So from everything you've learned and from some of the, you know, guests, or maybe all the guests you've interviewed, what would you say, maybe you've answered it already, but what would you say, you know, is making you the most cash flow, or you think makes the most cash flow just in general?
The strategy. And here's another big difference between the average person and between wealthy folks. When you go to a cocktail party with the average person on the street, here's what they're going to talk about. Is real estate a good investment? Is stocks and bonds a good investment? They're going to talk about all these different products. Is whole life insurance good? Is term better? You know, that kind of stuff. All these little products, because it's so product focused. And of course, we've all been brainwashed because that's Wall Street and that's the media. They want to sell you products. Then let's switch gears. If you're going to be at a cocktail party around very, very wealthy people and investors, what are they talking about? Strategy. What's your strategy? What niche are you in? What trends do you see there? What's happening? What are some of the things that you're anticipating? What is your strategic objectives there? And how do you implement and execute? What do you do tactical? And what are some of the upside and downside? And how do you protect yourself in markets that go up, sideways, or down? You know, what are some of the tactics that you employ? Because they know it's irrelevant what vehicle you're in. It doesn't matter whether you're in real estate, whether you're in businesses, whether you're in insurance, whether you're in, it doesn't matter. Oil and gas, commodities, crypto, it's a strategy. So I think that's the big thing. So which one creates the most cash flow? It depends on the investor, not the investment, number one. And number two, it depends on the strategy. You know, and there's a lot of things that you can break down on what goes into an overall strategy, but it's all about the strategy. It's not about the product. And I think that is, unfortunately, if you look at how you build a strategy, I mean, we could break it down from what you and I just discussed with mental capital, relationship capital, using that as a framework, then bringing in a strategy framework of checklists of what you have to have in place, and then using the asset classes and why you need them. And then at the end, you end up with the vehicles and how you integrate the vehicles. Like, for example, personally, I integrate real estate with insurance, high cash value life insurance, cash flow banking, infinite banking strategy. So I don't invest in insurance, or I don't just invest in real estate. I blend the two. It's part of my overall strategy. And then there's also a tax strategy component to that. I'll give you an example with the tax strategy. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, cash flow quadrant. On the left-hand side, the E and the S. On the right-hand side is the B and the I. E for employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. Somebody brings an investment to you. The one might cash flow more than the other one. What type of income is it? Is it capital gains? Is it purely an appreciation of capital gains play? There are certain investments like that, trading stocks, for example, and also flipping houses, and then also life settlements is another investment in insurance space, right? Capital gains, right? It's going to be one of those strategies. What about passive investing? What about oil and gas investing that not only provides cash flow but reduces the income? You know, where does that all play in? So I think there's many different things. Just to break down quick on the cash flow side, it's the investor, not the investment. It's the strategy, it's not the product. And then in an overall strategy, there's many different things to consider besides the asset class or the amount of cash flow. Like, for example, what type of cash flow it is, because it's not all equal. You might give me an investment and say, MC, look at this, there's 120% return on this. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And there's another investment with a 10% return, but tax efficiency, long-term play, five-year window with an exit, you know, all that stuff, the 10% might be a much better investment that fits into your overall strategy than the 120% home run.
So if a dual listener is a fly on the wall listening on our conversation now, and they're thinking, wow, I really like this MC guy, but you know, I'm still kind of unsure if I should go into passive investing side of real estate, or go active, like flip a house, or maybe invest with a syndicator like myself, or whatever. What would you say to that person that they've got that swirl of confusion in their mind?
That's a great question. And here's what I would say. You have to figure out exactly what your life looks like. And this ties into the lifestyle design stuff. Because when you take a leap and you go into real estate and you start another business, you have to know what you want your life to look like. What does it look like? Does your family life look like? What does your overall life look like? Because if you don't, you can build your own prison. What do I mean by that? Let's just say you're a physician listening to this, right? Or you're someone that works a lot of hours. Well, the second step would be to determine, how much extra time do I have to devote to this? Am I going to create a real estate business, or am I going to find people that are ninjas in their space and invest with them, with a track record, a team, great mentors, and so forth, because I just don't have the time? Is that a quicker way for me to get out of the rat race? And that also ties into, they have capital. Let's just say you have capital, you don't have time, you do something like that. If you don't have capital, but you do have time, flipping and active real estate investing is a great way to get started. Wholesaling, flipping, all that kind of stuff is a phenomenal way to get started in real estate, because not only do you learn the game, you learn the players, you build up your network, you make contacts, connections. I could go on and on and on. You do that for 2 or 3 years to build up some capital to invest in real estate. And not only have you now got that investment, but you also have all these other things that go along with it. So I think it's different from each person. So you figure out what you want your life to look like. And then also, do you have more time than money? Do you have more money than time? What's your objective? Are you trying to get out of the rat race in 5 to 10 years? Or are you trying to build a real estate business to take over another business, right? So there's many questions. I guess it would be, here's what a lot of people say when I ask questions like that too. They say, it depends. And usually I'm like, oh, you know, it's frustrating to hear that, but it's so true. It truly depends where you are on your journey, what you want your life to look like, and also what your financial situation is like. Do you have more money than time, or do you have more time than money?
Yeah, so we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. What makes MC unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates MC from the next guy or the next girl?
Besides the general life experience, I do listen a lot. Even if you look at I listen to my interviews on Cashflow Ninja too, where I listen, I take notes, and I always try to listen. Make that very important, because I do have 2 ears and one mouth. So I do try to listen more than what I talk, and I love to talk, so it's very hard.
Nice. That's a good one. Second question, you've talked about this already, 52 books a year. What was the last book that you read? What was the one thing that you picked out from that book?
Be the Man by Garrett J. White. And it's actually where a lot of people are trying to be a good man, but it's the big thing is it's time for you to start being good at being a man. And it's Garrett obviously has a different audience. He has the Wake Up Warrior movement, but I thought that which is for married businessmen, because they are very much there's a lot of stuff going on with men these days too. You just have to look at what's going on outside there, and it's time that men stop trying to be just good men, but start being good at being a man, meaning taking care of yourself, your family, being responsible. I think being a leader, right, within your family and your community, because I think that's a big part that what we've lost. And I think that's a big part of the problems that we see in families these days.
Wow, that's a powerful one. Yeah, I really like that. So obviously you've got the Cashflow Ninja, you're investing in different asset classes, you've got the podcast going, you're doing a ton of stuff. What do you do for fun?
Oh boy, I spend a lot of time with my family for fun. So right now with 2 young kids, we've got a lot going on. So we do a lot of adventures. So my wife loves to do stuff too. And obviously this winter has been tough because we've got a 2-month-old and we've been kind of constrained, but we spend a lot of time together as a family, and then just doing just random stuff, going for ice cream here, playing outside. It's the little things, So that's what I'm spending the majority of my time with right now for fun. I have always kind of been outdoorish and enjoying a lot of outdoor stuff, but this is what we do. So we spend a lot of time together, and it's a blast. It's a blessing. It's one of the best things that I've ever been involved with, is this little growing family that we have, and I enjoy and appreciate every moment.
Yeah, I bet I can totally relate. So if I'm a fly on the wall or somebody listening and they go, wow, I really like this MC guy. I want to connect with MC. I want to know more about MC. How can people reach out to you and connect with you?
Absolutely. Cashflowninja.com is where we have our show. We do 3 shows a week. We interview a ton of great folks that share their journeys and how to create cash flow, because as you mentioned, cash flow is king, not cash, right? Cash is not king, cash flow is king. And the other thing, the other part that they can reach out to me is at yourownbankingsystem.com. That's for my company, Producers Wealth, where we offer folks an alternative outside of Wall Street, where we integrate different asset classes. Insurance with real estate is a big one that we do there as well.
Wow. Thank you so much. I got to check that myself. I really, really appreciate your time, MC. It's been a great honor to have you on the Dwellynn Show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was great.